Welcome to another AsIs Podcast. Today's guest is the prestigious Steve Greenberg. Mr. Greenberg, you there?
Yeah, how are you, Bob?
Hey, I'm doing good, man. Hey, let's start off straight from the beginning. Tell us what type of law you practice.
Well, I practice primarily criminal defense, although we do a fair amount these days of civil rights cases where people have been wrongfully convicted. Oftentimes we will get involved while they're still in jail, in prison, and of course then we have to convince the court that the conviction is flawed, and then we pursue the civil case for them.
Can you give us an example of a case that you served?
Sure. A case I did, and actually we just settled it about a week before the pandemic started. We were supposed to go to trial. Unfortunately, it settled. 3 guys wrongfully convicted in Rockford, Illinois, which is about 90 miles from Chicago. They were serving lengthy sentences for the murder of a 7-year-old. We were able to establish that, in fact, they had absolutely nothing to do with the crime, that the police didn't like them for some of their other activities and had gone out of their way to frame them for the murder. After we got them out, we filed a lawsuit and actually got the largest settlement ever in Rockford, $11 million. The largest before that had been about $2 million. I have another one in Chicago. I have a couple of guys, 26 years, 24 years, 14 years. All those were situations where we were able to establish that they, in fact, were completely innocent of the crimes. Got them out of jail, and we're now pursuing civil actions for them.
Let me ask you, how often do you see these civil type cases?
Do I see these silly type cases?
Civil.
Civil type.
Yeah, violations of civil rights. How often or how much of that is in the court system?
I couldn't quantify a number or a percentage. I think that it's getting better because of technology. The cases we see now, oftentimes the crime itself is on video. The accused is on video. Certainly the interrogations are all on video. The problem that we encountered in all of the older cases was that there was no way to make sure that the police officers were acting lawfully, weren't coercing people, weren't abusing people. And of course, they'd go to trial and they would describe an event that never happened. They would describe a consensual and cooperative event, when in fact what had occurred was they had beaten somebody up, or they had made promises to somebody. So now with the advent of video interrogations, you have proof of what went on, and I think that's forced the police to become more honest in their dealings with people.
Do you see that same type of technology working in criminal defense cases as well?
Well, it is in criminal defense cases. When people are at the police station, now they're treated completely different. And frankly, at least in Chicago, when they're patrol officers, they have body cam on now. And so the interactions they have with people are different. They're certainly much more respectful. Now, I can't say in defense of police officers, I can't say that the people they deal with on the street are necessarily more respectful. A lot of times they put up with some pretty abusive conduct, and in the old days they would have just hauled off and beat the crap out of somebody and then claimed that person had taken a swing at them. Now they just bite their tongues and go about their business because everything's being recorded. So I think that the advent of body cam, the advent of video and interrogation rooms, both of which are mandatory here in Illinois, has caused the process to become more honest. But there is a huge backlog of people that I think were wrongfully convicted back in the 90s and 2000s that need to be worked through.
So there's a lot of the old cases are now being re-examined.
Yes. There's one situation where I'm not involved in it, but there was a police officer Officer Watts, hundreds of cases, drug cases that he made, had been vacated because the people were actually innocent. And he was just planting drugs on people. And unfortunately, he got prosecuted, but he only got sentenced to 2 years in jail for it.
Wow. Wow. So do you think any of that stuff is racial? Do you think a lot of the stuff that's going on or that you've covered or defended has been race-based?
I that's a tough question because I think that crime inherently, and I want to phrase this the right way. I mean, there's obviously more crime in poor neighborhoods, and poor neighborhoods tend to be neighborhoods where there's black and brown people traditionally. So I think it's not as much a racial problem as a socioeconomic problem. I don't know that the police act any differently because someone is of color. I just think there's a lot more cases involving people who are of color.
I mean, that's a typical lawyer's answer, but your gut, come on, Steve, like, let's be honest. You don't think a lot of times the racial profiling, I mean, it's racial profiling in black neighborhoods. Do you believe that?
Oh yeah, there's definitely racial profiling, and that's not what I'm saying. But some of the cases I have involved officers of color also.
And
so
that's sad.
I certainly can't say those are racist. I think more than racism, it's just a lack of respect for other people.
Really?
It's just an attitude that people's lives don't matter, that they're throwaways, that they're the enemy. And now whether that's essentially based in race or not, I don't know. I mean, I'm sure race is one of many factors that goes into that sort of that calculus.
Do you see that calculus being inside of court? Meaning, do you see those type of things happening with verdicts? Like, if let me give you an example. As a black guy,
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
you do.
Yes. I think the court system is much more racially biased than the police department.
Wow.
I think when it comes to law enforcement, it's an issue of lack of respect, lack of caring, and they essentially feel like they're at war with these people in these communities, whatever they are, no matter who they are. If they see someone who's white and that person moved into one of these communities, I think law enforcement would automatically assume there was something wrong with them. They're a drug addict. They're up to no good. I don't know that it would be racially based. I think that the court systems are much more focused on race. And frankly, if I'm going to be completely honest, I think that that it's an argument that lawyers use also.
Wow.
When you have somebody who comes from a more affluent suburban community and they commit the same crime, you're going to make an argument, and I'm just talking generally here, but you're going to make an argument, hey, the kid wants to go to college and so on and so forth. That's a difficult argument to make for somebody who dropped out of high school in the 11th grade. And you don't see that in the suburban communities. But that's a discussion that's more, I think, for sociologists than for lawyers. You do the best as a lawyer, you do the best you can to fix problems in the system, but one person, unfortunately, is not going to change everything. And until you change everybody's attitude, it's very difficult.
Let me take you through a scenario, hypothetical, and we're going to go through the scenario together. Black man accused of drugs. He's been caught with allegedly a kilo of cocaine. What would be his first process when trying to find a lawyer and then going to court? What do you think a black man should do when being accused of having a kilo of cocaine? That first phone call to that first lawyer, what kind of lawyer should he look for?
he should look for the best lawyer he can get. One of the problems that you run into now is a lawyer is the internet. And of course, on the internet, everyone is the world's greatest lawyer. It cracks me up when I see someone who posts on the internet um, that that they've never lost a jury trial. To me, that says they've never done a jury trial, right?
Right.
Um, you know, people focus on these Google 5-star reviews, which anyone can go out and have people make for them. So um, somebody needs to find the best lawyer they can. They need to find a lawyer that's going to go on the offensive. They need to find a lawyer that's not just a cog in the system. There are lawyers that I know that I see all the time that I've known for 20 plus years, and I have never seen them question a witness in court, but they have thriving practices.
Wow. So let me take it one step further. You say find the best lawyer you can. Now we have an African American man, and he's trying to find the best lawyer he can. In your opinion, would that best lawyer be black or white? And you have to pick one.
I think there's good of both. I don't think you can draw a distinction whether it's black or white. What I don't believe, and again, this is something that sort of a theory that people have all the time. I don't think that a black man necessarily needs a black lawyer because that's the only lawyer who understands where they're coming from. I don't think that if you're accused of committing a crime against a woman that you need a female lawyer because jurors are going to feel like you're a better person because you've got a female lawyer. I don't think people are that transparent. You know, these questions that you're asking me, Shabazz, are um, they're complex questions, and I think you're they have no simple answers.
I mean, you can the best
There's
answers.
no one size, but there's no one size fits all for any of this.
I mean, and I agree, but I'm just trying to go through something so I can get something clear for the listeners' minds, and just based on what's been going on in America for the last 100 years. So, although I mean, I'm biased. I'll be
Right.
totally honest, and the reason why I'm biased with it is because, contrary to popular opinion, let me just make it clear that I'm pro-black. That's number one. But number two, because I know the legal system and I've been in the legal system myself personally, I'm an ex-felon. I've found the success rate of a black man winning a case with a white lawyer. I've not seen. I've been incarcerated, and most of the people that have been incarcerated with me, when you ask them who their lawyer was or what color their lawyer was, a lot of times dudes are. It doesn't really matter what color the lawyer is if it's a legal aid, because legal aids, as far as I'm concerned, suck, black and white. But if you have a paid lawyer, and they're African American, a lot of times those dudes are in jail. And I don't say that because I believe that white people are smarter than black people or whatever the case is. I think it's a lack of respect for a black man to walk into a white courtroom and get a fair trial simply because the judge is white, 90% of the jurors is white, the court clerks are white, the correction officers are white. How do you stand a fair shot in situations like that?
So one of the finest lawyers I ever knew was a guy named Gene Pincham. Um, he was a lawyer who had gone to Northwestern and said that when he was going to Northwestern, he was working as a busboy to help pay for it at the Palmer House Hotel in downtown Chicago. And he was African American. He was smart. He was articulate. And when he gave an argument or asked a question, I felt like I was listening to a Baptist preacher and hanging on every word. The same thing with Leo Holt. Leo Holt used to say that every lawyer who ever heard me do a closing argument said it was the best closing argument they ever heard. And he was right. Again, another African American lawyer. So I think there are good African American lawyers and there are bad African American lawyers. Uh, Tom Breen is a wonderful lawyer. He's white. Anyone would be well placed to hire Tom Breen as a lawyer. He's a wonderful lawyer and a great orator, um, whether they're white or black. I'm not going to give you the names, but I could also name for you some awful African American lawyers, some of whom are involved in a very high profile case that's going to trial in a couple of weeks here in Chicago. Uh, they're not good lawyers. They're not honest people. You know, I could do the same thing with white lawyers. So it's like anything. You can find good cops and bad cops. You can find good lawyers and bad lawyers. You can find good doctors and bad doctors.
That's a
I, I
clever.
think
That's a
I
clever.
think that if we're well,
I'm sorry. Go
Shiraz, I
ahead.
think that if you're trying to draw a racial distinction, then you're doing the same exact thing that you're accusing the cops of doing.
Perhaps maybe that's one way to look at it, but that's not exactly what I'm saying. I think that's a very good argument, but I think it's a clever argument to evade exactly my point. And my point is this: it's not a question of if the lawyer that's of color is smart. It's not a question of if he's a good orator. It's a question of if the court respects him. You can be the best speaker in the world, but if you already walk into that court and there's a preconceived notion or there's a bias or there's a prejudice towards that person or towards that nationality, it doesn't matter what you say. It's like having a beautiful woman. There are people who have seen beautiful models. She has voluptuous shape or however she's shaped, but she's just beautiful. At the end of the day, there's a lot of men who feel like it doesn't matter what she says. They don't care what she says. She can talk like she's an astrophysicist or she can just be plain dumb. As long as she's beautiful, she gets the job done. If you reverse that, it doesn't matter what the black man says as the lawyer. He's black. He's walking to a white court. It don't matter
I
how good
think
he speak. There are
see, and
exceptions, and there are
right.
exceptions. There are definitely exceptions, but overall, our jails are filled with the majority of black and brown people. And the
Mhm.
majority of them, they didn't have the money to defend themselves, and they get stuck with these legal aids, and they lose the case. But of those that do have the money, the average drug dealer. Let me just say this: the average drug dealer that has money, and I'm not talking about a drug dealer that's sneaker hustling. And what sneaker hustling means is you're making enough money to buy a pair of sneakers. I'm talking about a guy who's on a kilo level or better. Do you think they go after Tom Brown or do they go after Steve Greenberg? In your opinion, you think they go after the black lawyer or the white Jewish lawyer?
They go after the white Jewish lawyer,
Okay, then. So why are you
and
trying to be?
they make a point of telling you that.
Of course, because we know. We know we're black. We know. Like, and it's kind of like an oxymoron, if you want to say, because what happens is, on one hand, you want to support your people. You are what you
Hmm.
are, and you're not going to turn your back on your people. At least I'm not. But there are truths that are in the black community that black people don't really want to face. There are truths within the black community. I'll say it again, that black people do not want to face. And unfortunately, if you're honest, I am not going to get Tom Brown because it's not about Tom Brown, and that I want to be clear with that. It's not about self-hate against my no. I know Tom Brown is not going to be respected the way Steve Greenberg or any lawyer that's white is going to be respected on a higher level. It's like if you want to if you want to have a fight, in a different country or whatever, you get the natives. You don't come into the country with your own kind and think you're gonna win. You cannot win going in somebody else's court. I don't care where you're from. If you're gonna play fair and play by the rules, you have to play with the people who come from those rules. Black people don't come from those rules. Would you agree with that? Or how do you see that?
You know, I have always, and I can only speak from my own experience. Um, I have always worked really hard. Uh, I think that very early on, I was not a public defender. I was not a state's attorney. So I started going to courts as an unknown, someone that, who is this guy? And I think I earned the level of respect that I get, and I think I deserve. And I have disdain for lawyers who don't work hard and don't do a good job, whether they're white, black, green, purple, or pink. And I'm very open about it. I don't hide my feelings. Uh, so I can't really comment on what you're saying, because I think that a bad lawyer of whoever they are isn't respected and doesn't deserve respect. And I think a good lawyer, no matter what courtroom they walk into, has earned a level of respect. Um, I think that the way that the lawyers are treated is different than the way that the defendants are treated. Um, but that's just my opinion. Now, I also see a certain level of lawyers who sort of practice doing what the defendant wants to do. So it's just not the right way to practice. And I see defendants who want a lawyer. There's lawyers who post on Instagram. They win a case or something, and they post these just what I believe are very unprofessional postings where they're talking like they're on the streets, and they're like, I effed up that guy, that cop, blah, blah, blah. Their clientele loves it. The profession hates it. I mean, there's too many different angles to this question to try and answer it in a simple, this is the problem, this is the solution kind of thing. And I'm not saying that's what you're trying to do. I'm just saying it's too broad of a question.
I mean, you know what? Perhaps maybe it is. And I don't want to make everything racially based, but unfortunately in America, that's just how I feel. And just to put a period on my sentence, it is not about being pro-black, and because this person is black, I have to hire him. As a person, you have the right to pick whoever you want. Statistically speaking, I just think you have better odds when you have a higher level lawyer, and that lawyer has to be of a certain color, and it has nothing to do with his education. Because just like you just said, let me give you a great example. You just said you didn't come from, being a legal aid or this, that, or the other, and you were able to go into a courtroom just as being yourself, and you had to start from the bottom. But what allowed you to be able to do that without any credentials behind you was the fact that you're white. A black man with no credentials couldn't have walked in the courtroom and got a case unless he was a case chaser. He'd stand in the lobby and wait for somebody to come out and ask, how much do you charge? I've been in the courtroom. I've seen that. I was fortunate enough to never have to do that because, it is what it is. But my mama would have made sure as soon as I got arrested, she was on the phone. And unfortunately, the truth is the truth. Her selections was names that they were Jewish. She would stay away from that. She would stay away from anybody she had to get and hire in the lobby. So by the time I got bail or the time I had my first case, I had a lawyer that my mother had already picked out for me. I was fortunate enough to have that situation. But then there were also times when I didn't have any money and my mother wasn't around and she refused to help me again. And I might have got stuck with, somebody else. And those somebody else's, in those cases, I was out of luck. Now, to refer on to what you said of speaking on Instagram, I think what happens is people need to feel like they are of the same kind. So if you're of the same kind, meaning if you use the vernaculars and your slang or, to be like the same people, then I guess they're looked at in a different way. So I think there's a level of professionalism that should be looked for, regardless to whatever. But we don't see it that way all the time. I mean, that's just my take on it. But now let's just move on.
Do you remember Archie Bunker?
I do. Of course.
You remember Archie Bunker used to say that you got to hire a Jewish lawyer?
But it's true. It's true. Yeah. I mean, it's just true. And
I don't know. In Chicago, it helps if you got an Irish lawyer.
I guess it depends on who the client is. But it's really true. Like, Jews run a lot of different things. And the crazy thing about it is, there's sometimes racial conflicts. Like in New York, we have a project. And in the projects, you normally see black and brown people. There is a project in Fort Greene, and it's 99% Jewish people. And the projects are clean. You don't see stuff littered around, and they have police protection like you would not believe. If you're walking through those projects 10:30, 11 o'clock at nighttime, and the police are there and you're black, you're getting ready to get patted down and frisked. This is in New York right now. As soon as you get over the Brooklyn Bridge, it is a project full of Jews. And these Jews get up like clockwork every morning and they take themselves down to 47 50th Street to the Diamond District. And they're selling Rolex watches in diamonds. Like, it's just a different type of a thing. I don't know how to explain it. But sometimes in the urban communities, there's a conflict with Jewish people. And what I don't think we all see is Jews were annihilated. Hitler did a number on them. They definitely have history that went against them, but they managed to figure it out, rise up. Now they just run a lot of things. We don't. So for me, I think the bond in the olive branch between a black man, regardless to whatever you believe in, be it Muslim, be it Christian, be it Baptist, just as a human being, if I see that you've survived something and I can extend an olive branch and you teach me how to overcome what you've survived, there should be a bond. Unfortunately, in America, it isn't. Let's go on to some of the more famous cases you've had. You've had you defended the police officer that shot his wife in Chicago, Scott Peterson.
Uh, no, Drew
Drew
Peterson,
Peterson. I'm sorry. Okay.
and he supposedly drowned her in a tub.
Okay. All right. That, you know what? That's
Uh,
something I didn't follow. But okay, I'm familiar with the
Scott
name.
Scott Peterson supposedly shot his wife in California.
Okay.
But
Okay.
people make that they get the two confused all the time.
Okay. So the one that was in Chicago, that was the cop. That's the one you
Right,
defended. Tell us about
correct.
that
And
case and how did it come
Stacy, his
about?
other wife, disappeared.
Tell us about that case and how it came into existence for you.
Uh, well, that case, how I got involved in that case was it was set to go to trial in around 2010, and around the same time, Rod Blagojevich was in trouble, and Peterson's defense team was sort of falling apart. The guy who was the lead counsel um, was looking for people to jump in. He reached out to a lawyer named Sam Adam, who was the very fine lawyer here in Chicago. Interestingly, sort of circling back to the last thing, Sam is of mixed race. So Sam used to love to say that he could be, white in front of the white people and black in front of the black people. Um, but the Sam was getting ready to try Rod Blagojevich's case, so he couldn't do it. And he suggested that they contact me. So I got involved in the case, took a look at it, realized that a bunch of stuff hadn't been done that should have been done, filed, I don't know, dozens of motions. And the judge granted a bunch of them, and the state ended up appealing them, which is why it didn't go to trial for another couple of years.
Now, in this case, let's be honest, there were some accusations made about you and they weren't all good. You want to go over that?
In the Peterson case,
Yeah. You were fired after the verdict, correct?
no, that is incorrect. I
Okay.
still represent Drew Peterson to this
Oh.
day.
Oh, okay.
So that's 100% correct. No. So that case involves, sad that I was on probably two of these kinds of cases. That case involves something that we'd like to say is on the Mount Rushmore of the worst things ever happened in a case. We were winning that case. There's no doubt we were winning that case. Anyone who watched that case said we were winning that case. I've talked to jurors years later, shortly after the case and years later, because a couple of them have stayed in touch with me and reached out to me afterwards. They said we were winning the case. And then the lead attorney made a decision to call a witness. So Drew's fourth wife, this was for the murder of his third wife, and his fourth wife had disappeared. And the story was that she wanted to divorce him, and she called the lawyer who had represented his third wife, the one he was on trial for murdering, and told him that she had information that he had murdered his third wife. Up to that point, everything was that it had been an accident. She had drowned in the tub. Supposedly, Drew overheard this, and a day or two later, his fourth wife goes missing. Um, so the attorney called as a witness in the case the lawyer who had had this conversation with the um, with the lady who ultimately disappeared, and he testified about what she told him. So essentially, the lawyer called someone to testify that the defendant had confessed to committing the murder. Uh, to this day, I have no idea why. Um, but after the trial, uh, he was obviously fired, and instead he put out some press release saying I was fired, which I wasn't. I did the post-trial motion, actually did all of the appeals, which unfortunately, uh, although it was ineffective assistance, we lost the appeal. The court didn't cite any cases. I think it was just they didn't want to let this guy out. Um, and I don't think it helped that he subsequently got convicted of, while the appeals were pending, of conspiring to have the prosecutor killed.
Right. So
That certainly
what is the
never
status?
helps.
What is his status right now? I mean, of course he's incarcerated. Is there an appeal going on? Has he exhausted his appeals?
There's a post conviction on the case I represented him on. But as a practical matter, he got convicted and got sentenced to 40 years. So he got a longer sentence, 40 years for trying to have the prosecutor killed.
Wow.
Um, so even if he were to, I think he needs to be 78 or 80 years old before he completes that sentence.
Wow. One of your
Yeah.
another famous case that I don't know if you really want to discuss or not is definitely the R. Kelly case. So, is that something that you can discuss?
Yeah, we could discuss it briefly. I mean, we were working on that case. Um, we had all sorts of great stuff we were doing, and unfortunately, in my opinion, the wrong people got in his ear. So we did not end up trying that case. I am certain that we would have had a much different approach and that we would have won that case in New York for him. Um,
Before you go into
sort
that,
of a.
before you go into
Mhm.
because I don't want to create a rift or anything. Let's first before you do that, let's examine some of the charges and just tell me what you break the charges down to me. And one that I really want to know about is the RICO law. Can you break that down to me and tell me how it's supposed to be used in a normal way it's used?
The RICO law is supposed to punish, uh, was initially enacted to punish the mob. The idea was that it was difficult to convict sort of the mob chiefs for the things that their underlings were doing. So we're going to pass this law, and the law is going to make it easier because we're going to be able to punish people for being part of an organization,
Right.
and we're going to be able to we're going to look to state law for the penalties. So previously, if you conspired to have someone murdered, the penalty wasn't that great. Well, under RICO, if you look to the state court penalties for the underlying offense, you're now looking at life in prison. So it became a much more effective tool to punish people and to sort of get people for being a member of an organization. Now I think they're just, completely bastardizing it and abusing it and the way they're using it. In Kelly's case, they took a bunch of things where the statute of limitations had expired and or were misdemeanor offenses where the statute of limitations had expired and made them into this federal RICO case. And the problem with it is in his case, there were 16 or 18 different things that they put before the jury, but the jurors only have to find two things. So in anyone's life, if you throw enough things into the mix and you say this person violated the law, even for the most law-abiding citizen, you could probably find a couple of things that they did wrong. Among the things that they alleged against Kelly was that he had sex when he had herpes. And the law that they went under, no one had ever been prosecuted under that law. That was a law where if two people who each have herpes want to have sex together, it's actually illegal under that law.
Wait a
We
minute. Wait,
filed
wait, wait, wait. Say that again. Say wait. So if two people knowingly have herpes and they sleep together, that's illegal?
under that law, yeah, under the law he was prosecuted, which is why no one was ever prosecuted under it. We filed a motion saying that it was illegal and unconstitutional, and unfortunately the judge denied it. I'm certain that on appeal the appellate court is going to see it differently.
Wow. So when was this law established and
Isn't that
for
ridiculous?
it is, but when was this law established and for what state does it apply to?
It was a New York law passed at the end of World War II to discourage the spread of syphilis because the soldiers were coming back from the war with venereal diseases. And so it was supposed to discourage the spread of venereal disease.
Wow. I've never heard of anything like that in my life. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So amongst other things, what were some of the other things that came up that you don't think was right in that case?
Well, I don't think it's right that you can get around the statute of limitations. I don't think it's right that they could just grab onto cases where state court prosecutors had decided there was no merit to the case. They basically, they stepped in and tried to take over for the state court prosecutors. The other problem that I have with it is that in a state court crime, you're just getting judged on the one crime. Under the RICO law, they were able to bring in a pattern. So you get convicted, even though the judge tells the jurors don't convict them just because of this. You get convicted because there's a pattern of conduct, not because there's any specific conduct. Jurors are humans. If the jurors hear that something repeatedly happened or something similar happened, they're more likely to believe any one of the incidents in fact occurred.
Let me ask you this. Some people accuse you of stalling with the case, and for whatever reason, I don't know where they get their information from or how it came out, but it says that you stalled and you didn't file motions and he just sat there. How true is that? Because you just said you filed the motion for something. How true is that?
No, that's absolutely false. So in a federal criminal case, we had COVID. We were set for trial, and then we had COVID. So I don't know how. I certainly didn't cause the COVID shutdown.
Right.
So in a federal criminal case, a judge will set deadlines for certain things. So certain kinds of motions have to be filed right away. We filed those motions. Other motions you can't file until you get the discovery. And we didn't get the discovery until months before trial. You don't get the discovery the first day like you do in a state court case. So we had to wait till we got the discovery. Once we got the discovery, we had a whole slew of motions that we were going to file when we were dismissed from the case. I don't want to get into a tit for tat, but a couple of the things where the judge commented that we filed them late, they were things that other lawyers on the case were supposed to handle, and they didn't handle them. That's why you saw the judge actually after the trial, she denied a motion, and she said this was filed on the day of trial. I mean, we were out of the case for months and months at that point, and motions were due, and the lawyers that came into the case, they didn't file anything till the day of trial. There were motions we had ready to go challenging the application of the RICO statute that we had shared with the other lawyers that they never filed. So there's all sorts of things. A while ago I had tried to bring in another lawyer into the case, who's now coincidentally is now handling the post-trial motions for him. And I think you're going to find out a lot when she finally does whatever she does. I mean, that's up to her. I'm not involved in it. I'll answer questions if I get asked questions. If I don't get asked questions, I won't answer questions.
So what is her name?
Jennifer Bonjean.
Okay. And this is Bill Cosby's prior lawyer.
She did. She handled Bill Cosby's appeal. That is correct.
Now let me play
And
devil. I'm sorry. Go
she's
ahead.
she's a friend of mine, and she at one point was possibly going to step in and try the case with Mike Leonard and I.
Let me play devil's advocate for a second. From what I know, and correct me if I'm wrong, from what I know, Bill Cosby's case was overturned because he had made a deal when he had his civil case, and so
Right. Bill Cosby's case was overturned because the court allowed in uh, too many incidents of other crimes, what they call bad acts, and also because he had made a deal with the then prosecutor that he would not be prosecuted. He had an immunity deal,
okay,
and the judge decided that that his immunity deal was personal to that prosecutor and not binding on subsequent prosecutors, which is just an idiotic ruling.
so in essence, the lawyer that is now taking care of R. Kelly, she in essence really didn't save Bill Cosby. Bill Cosby's deal prior to her is what saved Bill Cosby. Is that accurate?
Oh, no, I don't know that that's accurate. I mean, other lawyers uh, had litigated these issues and lost. Um,
But she
the
won.
gentleman from California, and she won. So obviously, and he lost in the appellate court. So uh, great facts make great lawyers. Certainly, there were good facts there to work with, but you still have to make it work.
Right. And I think that she can make it work. But here's my biggest fear. And just for the record, I'm not pro R. Kelly. I'm not anti R. Kelly. I'm pro justice. So, you have some people who say if you defend somebody or you put up an argument that you're in their corner. And if you're in your corner for justice or for just being right, you're just being right. So the next thing that I would say is what happened if this is common knowledge to you, and say the new lady that you brought in is common knowledge to her and she can help. One, what happened that fell apart for them? And two, my biggest fear is even if he wins on appeal in New York, he still has two other states to come to fight. Winning in New York would mean what to you and for his case?
Um, Winning in New York would mean that they reached the right result on that case. That's what it would mean.
Would it help him but that wouldn't allow him to be free?
Um, can you hold on for 1 sec? Can you pause
Sure.
this for 1 sec? Sorry. I gotta tell them to get my car.
Okay.
We have a 10 o'clock appointment.
Not a
You have
problem.
to sign up to go to museums. So hold on. Sorry, I didn't know. We're at this like kind of Airbnb place in Beverly Hills, and it's it's kind of
It's
a
not a
weird
problem,
setup.
and don't say it's not a problem for me at all, and I don't think you should say that because I want you to understand that anything that's said here, the pauses, the stalls, is going to be played, so you do not
Oh,
have to give up that information.
okay. I did not know that. All right, all right. So, can you ask the last question again?
The last question is, what would it do if he won in New York? How would it help him overall? Because he still has to face two other states with cases. Would that allow him to go free if he won the appeal in New York? Or would he still be incarcerated and have to face other trials?
It certainly would prompt an effort to get him out on bond. You know, the Minnesota case. I don't know what they're thinking on that case. I don't understand that case. I don't think there is a case there. I think that the Illinois state cases are fairly weak. Also, the Illinois federal case is a bit more substantial, and
Why would you say that? What is different about Illinois that makes it substantial as opposed to Minnesota?
Well, it's just a different structure of a case. It's got video involved in it. Um, we're subject to protective orders on this stuff, so
Understood.
I can't really get too much into it.
That's
But
fine.
it is from the proof standpoint, I think it's a bit more troubling than the New York case.
And that's fine. I understand. What do you think happened, which was the first part of the question in New York uh, with the team that he had? How did the ball get dropped? What do you think happened?
I, I don't want to get into the weeds on what happened there. I've already said before, I think that he was should not have changed counsel. I thought we had a good handle on the case. I thought we were appropriately experienced. Uh, just just a week ago, Mike won another federal case. Mike Leonard, who was doing the case with me, he and I had as far as I know, the best record in federal court here in Illinois. I think his is a little bit better than mine. Um, and Robert made a decision to go with other people. I can't, I can't do anything about that. That was his decision. Uh, it's a decision he's going to have to live with, and hopefully now it can get cleaned up. I think that the skill level for those lawyers became clear and evident when they tried the case.
Translate that. What does skill level mean? They're subpar, par, above average,
I'll let
average?
their I'll let I'll let their work speak for itself.
That says that they're losers because they lost.
Well, just because you lose a case doesn't make you a loser.
What does it
But
make you then? You're not a winner.
well, but it doesn't make. I mean, some cases are very very difficult cases. Good lawyers win the cases they should win, and sometimes win the cases that they shouldn't win. Um, and I'll just leave it at that.
I mean,
If you anyone who watched that trial uh, can make their own evaluation, can read up on it. The media has certainly written enough about it, and I'm not going to get into it.
and that's fine. But and that's fine as far as that's concerned. Why do you think the media? At first, in the beginning, actually, I believe that the media was ignoring it because I thought it was going to be headline news every day for the entire trial, and for whatever reason, it isn't or it wasn't. But when it became that, why do you think the media had such a passion for writing about it?
I'm sorry, I don't understand the question.
Like, why do you
I
think
mean,
they
he's a
had? Why
high
did they have a?
profile celebrity,
Okay, so you think
so
all?
I thought they would cover it a little bit more than they did. Also,
Me too.
um, but
Do you
I
think?
don't know
Do you
why
think?
they.
Do you think part of that reason is because inside their heads, overall, America feels like he's guilty, so there's really nothing to talk about? Do you think that's what it is?
Um, it might be. It might be that I don't really know. Of course, the media doesn't have the resources like they used to. There was no video of the trial, so it's kind of a print only story.
So why do you think that they denied cameras? That's a very good observation.
Federal courts don't allow cameras.
Oh, okay,
No
okay,
federal courts do. It's the U.S. Supreme Court has said no cameras.
okay. I didn't know that. You know what? Let's move on to you personally. I asked another guest this before, and the reason why I'm asking this again is because you've been accused of some things. People say you try to hog in the spotlight, and you want all of the fame. And how true is that? How do you defend yourself?
Who are these people who say these things?
I have no idea, but you hear and you see, people think that you are,
Yeah.
you want to be in the spotlight. And I
You
disagree
know,
to an extent. And the reason why, before you answer, I'll tell you why I disagree is because I believe R. Kelly is R. Kelly. I believe Drew Peterson is Drew Peterson. I believe Steve Greenberg is Steve Greenberg. And everyone that's in that circle is on the same level. If you weren't of the level of R. Kelly finance, or if you weren't on the level of R. Kelly's pockets, I don't think R. Kelly would have ever picked you in the first place. I mean, so you know what I'm saying? Like you have certain people that you know, this person, this is how this person does. This person is going to be in the media.
right.
This person is going to do this. This person comes with a price tag of $1 million. As the client, if you don't have $1 million, that person is out of your league. If you have the $1 million and you select that person, that means to you that person was qualified from the beginning. But what comes with certain levels and calibers of people are certain things. And one of them might be that they're in the spotlight all of the time. Some people who don't understand that may look at it and say, he wants to be the star. He wants to be more important than his client. So there have been people who've said stuff like that. How do you defend yourself from that?
Right. So the people who have said that, I've read a little bit of that. First of all, are not people who know me or have ever talked to me. And what I have always said and told the lawyers that I work on these cases with is that if we win the case, good things are going to happen for all of us. And let's win the case, and then what happens, happens.
Right.
And that's how I approach it. So it's not I have to be in the spotlight or anything. One of the lawyers who was involved in the Kelly case was very upset that I was getting TV interviews and he wasn't. And I told the TV people, and I would say, please call this guy. And they didn't want to talk to him. I can't help that, but winning cures everything and winning benefits everybody.
What is your winning record? What is your record right now as far as winning and losing in court case? Have you ever lost a case?
It's not, have I ever lost a case? I've lost lots of cases.
Okay.
I honestly have never kept statistics. I would say that and winning, so winning is a criminal defense lawyer. Winning is somewhat a relative calculation. Sometimes it's defined differently by different people. Some people feel if you're charged with the most serious crime and you're found guilty of a lesser crime, that's a win. Some people, feel like if you do an appeal and you win one issue and lose the other issue or the other issues, that's still a win, even though your client might spend the same amount of time in jail. So winning is a very, it's sort of in the eyes of the beholder. I will tell you that when it comes to my jury trials, I would guesstimate, and again, I don't keep statistics, that I've probably won 75 or 80% of the jury trials I've done over the years. In Illinois, where I'm from, we do a lot of bench trials or judge-only trials, and I would say that it's probably a similar percentage for those. And there's a great many cases that we've gotten dismissed on pretrial motions. But I don't keep statistics.
Let me ask you this.
I do the best I can, and I work my ass off on every goddamn case. And anyone who thinks we do any less just doesn't know us.
Let me ask you this. With that kind of passion towards what you do, how does one acquire you? How much money are we talking do I need for you to defend me for a drug case?
Depends on the case.
I got caught with 10 kilos.
A decent amount.
What do you call decent?
I think I'm about to get. I think I'm about to get a ticket or something.
Oh, okay. That's not funny. I thought you was stuttering because you didn't want to tell me what does it cost to get you.
No, think I'm about to get a ticket.
You can
So,
afford it, man.
or either that, or the cop who pulled behind me is going to get a cup of coffee.
Wow, I'm interested to see what happens. Here we are doing a podcast with Mr. Greenberg, and the police are behind you. So now
Yeah,
that's a great. Unfortunately, I'm sorry that you're experiencing this, but how does that feel? Do you feel like a
it
black
looks
man?
like they're going. Two cops on motorcycles, taking off their helmets, and I think they're going to get a cup of coffee.
But it's
So
weird. Did you feel black for a minute? Because I want you to understand how black men feel when the police
I
pull behind
I
them.
felt so I can tell you that two things. I feel the same level of anxiety as anyone else would.
Okay.
Um, White or black, your heart still stops even when you're just perhaps illegally double parked in Beverly Hills.
Okay.
Um, uh, what I know is that they won't ask to search my vehicle, and that's what the difference is. I've never had my vehicle searched by cops
And why do you think that is, Mr. Greenberg?
because because I'm white.
Oh, now we got blatant honesty. That's what I like. One of the things that people also say about you is you just say what it is. And sometimes you're so honest that it's a fault. How would you defend yourself with that?
Well, if you don't like it, you don't. Yeah, I mean, that isn't the very system I worked in based on honesty.
It is.
And so be honest with people. Uh, I don't need to lie to people to get business. I don't need to lie to judges. I don't need to lie to juries, and I don't need to lie to clients.
Right. So you just tell it like it is.
Yeah, tell like it is. Then someone understands everything, understands the ups, the downs, the ins, the outs. I like to tell people, Shabazz, that uh, as a lawyer, much of my job is being a risk manager,
Okay.
right? So it's my job to tell somebody these are your options and to help them evaluate their options. Um, I have a lawyer friend who actually got accused of killing his wife
Okay.
um, and arrested years later. Uh, Went to trial. Jury couldn't reach a decision. Before the retrial, they came to him and they said, um, you know, you were locked up for a year waiting for trial. Uh, if you plead guilty, we'll drop the murder charge. You'll plead to a reckless conduct, and you'll get a year. Right?
Right.
Imagine having to make that decision. Now you can explain to them, if you lose, you're going to get this much time. If you win, obviously you're going to go free. This is a year. You're not going to be a lawyer anymore, but you've already done the time. You can't get the time back. We have to explain those things. What I am thankful I never have to do is make the decision. Right?
Right. I mean, I understand. I definitely
Right.
understand.
So Miss Bonjean and I, Jennifer Bonjean and I, we did a case for a guy. We got him out of jail. He'd been locked up for 26 years, um, and wrongfully convicted. At the time he was convicted, he pled to another case, and it was concurrent time. It didn't add any time. It was just a few years. Well, after we got him out on the one case, we went to work to try and get him out on, to try and get him exonerated on the second case. And they kept saying, why? What difference does it make? He's already done the time. Why are you making everyone do all this work? And we said, because it's not right. And it makes a difference to him. It's not, people are not throwaways and their time is not throwaway.
Right.
And that's maybe, going back to what you started with, maybe that's part of the problem is that when they start treating people like they're pieces of chattel, which is how the system treats many people.
But you know what I just caught in that, I caught clearly, was you saying that you and Miss Bonjean worked together before. So in essence, she's somewhat of your partner.
We've got some cases together.
Okay. So
Good lawyers are going to work together, right?
So of course, there's a relationship there.
Yes.
Well, you know what? I hope.
Yeah, I'm glad Robert reached out to her because she is like people say I have my faults. She is fearless to a fault. And if she sees there's a problem, she is absolutely going to, bring that problem to light. And she's going to do it if she finds something in the case that she thinks I did wrong, she's not going to say, well, Greenberg's my friend, so I'm not going to raise that. And she shouldn't.
And that's the kind of friends that I like. And I like that, if that's what the case is, I respect that. And at the end of the day, I feel like just because she's come along, and this might sound racist, but this is just as is, and I'm going to say what it is. I feel like a white woman is going to have a tender touch, someone of her caliber, because he had a white woman as well on his defense team, and I don't feel that way about her. But I feel, for some reason, I feel that way about this one. And then she's just coming off of the Bill Cosby case. So she actually has the momentum, and she has a record to support being able to fight for R. Kelly or fight for any man. Because this is not about R. Kelly for me. It's about, if he's guilty, I've said it several times, and I'll say it again. If he's guilty, lock his ass up. But if you lock him up, you have to do it right. Because if you do not do it right, then you're just as bad as what you're accusing him of. And that's not justice.
Right. If you have the goods, you're going to win.
Right.
Do it the right way.
Exactly. And
absolutely.
That's exactly what I'm on.
Agree.
Hey, man, listen.
Agree.
Listen, Steve, I appreciate you, man, for taking my call. I appreciate the interview. I know are you on vacation?
My honeymoon.
Your what? Honeymoon? You just got married?
Yeah.
Oh my God. Round of applause. Wow, really?
Yep.
First time?
Second and last.
Oh, you better hope it's the last. What kind of wife do you have? What kind of person is she?
She's a wonderful person. She's sitting right here.
You better say that.
She laughed when I said that. She doesn't believe. Maybe she knows something I don't know.
Maybe we both do. I'm just playing with you, Steve. Hey, man, again, I appreciate you for coming on the show, man. I wish you all the luck in the world with helping out R. Kelly, man. I sincerely hope that...
and we're continuing to try and help him out.
Right, because you are the defense. You're the defense lawyer for Chicago, correct?
Right, but anything we can do to help in New York, we're going to keep trying to help.
And that's the way it's supposed to be, and I appreciate that. So, listen, man, is there any way you want people to be able to get in contact with you that might need a criminal defense attorney or civil rights attorney?
They can Google me.
Okay.
That's usually the easiest. All our information is easy to find.
Okay. All right. Thanks, Steve. Have a good day. All right. Bye-bye.